Okay, let's start. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for signing up and showing up. We had way more signups than people that have shown, so I suspect some people may come late, or I just heard in the grapevine that there are some competing webinars that came up. So let's see how it goes, but we will be recording this as well, so some people that missed it could request access. With that said, the idea is the power of dynamic routing and multimodal rate engines and how they can make your life better. And it's applicable for both importers, exporters, as well as NVOCCs as far as we are concerned. And we're really excited to have Mark here with us from the JOC, one of the leading experts on market situations and so forth. And he's going to give us a quick spiel once I turn over control to him, and let us see some of his slides and insights into the market so we can understand the current situation and so forth. So with that said, Mark, you should be presenter and be able to share your slides with our audience.
All right. Hello, everybody. Executive editor of the Journal of Commerce and JOC.com. Just a quick background, we're a nearly 200-year-old publication that is dedicated to covering freight. We write for the shippers, knowing that the information that we provide for the shippers will help their transportation provider partners. So if you're interested in more information, definitely check out JOC.com. We offer registrations to get a few quick stories a month, but obviously for full access you'll need a subscription. So without any more ado, I want to give a sense of what we're seeing in the container shipping market, and my comments are going to be focused when it comes to the Asia North America supply chain. Not to say that other types of shippers and supply chains aren't struggling, but we're seeing the brunt of the growth and volume and pressure coming here. So my comments will be focused as such. So what we're really seeing is it's you hear the word thrown around a lot, but it's unprecedented because it truly is. As many folks know, as many folks know, we saw weak volumes when COVID first hit. The question a lot of retailers and other importers had was, are they going to get their goods from China as it gets locked down because of the COVID? And then that quickly shifted to less a concern of getting those goods, but then slashing orders. And then, of course, they were surprised by how much consumer demand rebounded. And of course, now it kind of seems obvious that, yes, if we're going to be stuck at home, we're going to be buying more things for our home and more consumer goods, and have less money for restaurants and travel, which will then buy on electronics and so on. And that's what we've been seeing. It's just basically you've got normal restocking after inventories were low, and then just a surge of imports that has not let up even into the new year. And so what that's causing is that everybody knows that LA Long Beach is the fulcrum. It's the center of where the imports are having, and that's where we're seeing the most severe delays. But it's worth noting that the import pressures are just they're continuing, and that there are still there are other ports and other routings that shippers can tap to feed their distribution centers or go straight to customers. But as this quote here from the head of sales at Maersk North America says, the window to find those opportunities is lessening, and I think that's why what you're going to hear from the next two speakers is so germane to what shippers and other transportation providers are facing. So I talked about where the Asia import volumes are coming up. You can see the chart in the top left there that just shows the brunt here. So it started in early spring, and then it just didn't let up. I mean, there's been no dip after the Christmas holidays. There's been no let up during peak season when Chinese factories tend to shutter for Lunar New Year celebrations. Now, some of those factories actually stayed open because the demand from Western countries is so red hot. Speaking to North America, most of the pressure is hitting LA, New York, New Jersey, and Savannah. And really, we've got a story up on JOC.com today suggesting that marine terminals and other transportation providers in Southern California don't expect any let up in the pressure really until spring. And even then it may not come, because what's happening is that the import volume forecast is so strong that what we're going to see probably is elevated volumes up until August, kind of bumping into the traditional peak season, and there's really going to be no break. So it's almost like, as that slide before, this is like unrelenting peak season pressures. Now you can see on the far right here, this looks at the market share, and what you can see last year is obviously more and more of that was going to the West Coast. Part of that is because of just the faster transits into the interior of the United States, and also LA and Long Beach have a natural pull for less than container loads moving in, and of course being transloaded. But it's worth noting, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit more on this call, is looking at alternative gateways and alternative routings to hit that, whether that be through the West Coast, PNW in Canada, East Coast or Gulf Coast, looking at those options. But of course, you have to not only look at the state of port flow at those marine terminals and ports, but also what are some of the inland pressures, because those are building as well. We're seeing longer sporadic and longer dwell times at Chicago rail yards. Chassis supplies is getting tighter, and so on. So you really have to take a look at the whole picture and really calculate, because as this quote from Neriman Berovich made at our big conference TPM a couple weeks ago, the pressure isn't really going to let up. Yes, consumers will probably start buying more at restaurants and traveling in the second half as more of the country becomes vaccinated. But this idea of ordering more goods and the growth that e-commerce has had in this time isn't going to let up. So moving on to the next slide, and this is why we believe, and a lot of other people in the transportation industry believe, that the import surge and the pressures are going to keep continuing. You can look at U.S. retailers just up their import projections for the first half. They're anticipating record retail sales this year. So they're bringing even more volume, and we don't even have an outlook yet on what the second half is. We know through our own research that e-commerce shippers are growing their inventories beyond pre-pandemic levels, because they'd rather have more inventory than risk stockouts or miss sales. And interestingly, public companies are now saying, hey, the shipping delays and the congestion and the higher shipping rates that we're seeing is now actually increasing commodity costs and other inputs. And to a certain extent, some of these shippers or importers are going to have to actually pass those price increases on to customers. And I say that just because that gives you an extent of some of the financial pain that shippers, big and small, are facing. And then of course on the top right here, giving you a sense of the inventory levels. Obviously plenty room to keep growing, so there's plenty of more restocking to be had. And just a quick note, the reason that data is so dated is that it's coming from the US government, and unfortunately they give us about a 2 or 3 month view back, when really what we want to know is the inventory levels now. So, but nonetheless, there's still a lot of restocking that needs to be done, and also worth noting that manufacturing production will also probably ramp up as restrictions to the labor force ease. All right, so we talked a lot about volume, but we need to talk also about rates. And rates, of course, are a function of volume and capacity. There's a lot of accusations that carriers didn't add capacity fast enough. There may accusations that they're price gouging, but ultimately our view is that yes, there may have some, not so great behavior in terms of adding premiums for products that really don't provide a premium offering. Ultimately, the container lines were caught unexpected by this surge, and if you look at the order book, the idling is at record lows. They're throwing as much capacity as they can, And in fact, they're taking capacity out of lesser lanes and throwing them into the major trades, which would of course be Asia, Europe, and Trans-Pacific, because that's where the money is, which is the higher paying imports going to North American and European consumers. You see a quote here from Rahul Kapoor, one of my colleagues. Obviously anybody who's been in the container shipping industry knows that it's been marked by huge swings and lots of volatility, particularly on the spot side, as the industry has grappled with overcapacity. Obviously that's coming down. They've got a far better handle of capacity, and I would say roughly they've shown strong capacity in the Trans-Pacific for more than 2 years now. So what that means is even if volumes start dipping in the second half, you can bet that the carriers are going to be able to adjust capacity and keep spot rates from crashing because they've learned the lesson. And frankly, this is an outcome of rapid consolidation within the last 4 or 5 years. You've had 20 major East and West carriers go to 10, and there's frankly just less carriers to choose from, and they've been strengthened through their vessel sharing agreements, otherwise known as alliances. Now, it's also important to note that what the biggest constriction in terms of space on rates is not so much the slot capacity on the container ship, it's the availability of equipment, whether that be containers or chassis. And that's really where the premium is. And you'll see reports that there's not enough containers, and in a way that's true. The containers are not where they need to be. They're all being priced in North America and Europe. Shippers are holding on to the containers and chassis equipment longer, which is then slowing the circuitous movements that need to keep the supply chain system going on. And really, we don't expect equipment availability to improve until this import surge lessens up and the balance between import and export cargo kind of comes back into line, into levels that we saw pre-pandemic. And then, naturally, as I've noted, looking at what the volume forecasts are and how the carriers are behaving, we should expect pressure and volatility to last at least until this year. Notably, the big question for the container shipping industry is whether these elevated spot rates on the major trades will translate into higher contract rates. There's good reasons to believe that that's already happening. You can see that quick reading I got from Xaneta showing that service contract or long-term contract rates on the Trans-Pacific are rising. So a lot of clear writing on the wall there. So, new slide. So how did we get to this congestion? We talked about, the lack of equipment being available to fill loads in Asian origin ports, and that's contributing to lower on-time reliability. Obviously, vessel bunching that I'm sure everybody is aware of at the LA Long Beach port complex is contributing. But ultimately, ocean reliability is just down. You're looking at delays of 8 days compared to 3, and reliability levels under 30%. And it's worth noting that the Sea-Intel reliability numbers are very generous in what they consider reliable. As long as the ship comes in 24 hours before schedule or 24 hours after schedule, that's considering on time, which is an enviable window. But nonetheless, the reliability is still at very low levels. And while we've been seeing, of course, the brunt of it in Port of New York or LA and Long Beach, there's congestion and growing pressures in New York, New Jersey, and Savannah, and so on. They haven't had these same chassis issues, so there's enough chassis for the loads, but chassis supply is still getting tight. And as we reported earlier this week, some of the outbound regional drayage rates are rocketing out of New York and New Jersey. So there are options, but there is no silver bullet in terms of routing, which I think you'll hear from some of the speakers later today. And then, of course, all of the other landside pressures, it's worth noting, it's not just about getting slot space on that ship and getting it to the port. It's about how long it takes to get that box out of the terminal, whether there's chassis there. And then, of course, if you're not able to pick up that equipment and return equipment, you're liable for detention and demurrage charges, and those are getting into levels that has finally spurred federal maritime regulators through the Federal Maritime Commission to take a closer look. But as somebody who's covered regulation and the FMC for years, I can tell you that the FMC moves relatively slowly in terms of the pace of business. So I wouldn't be expecting any kind of immediate relief from regulators, meaning that the exposure to detention and demurrage will only increase. So that was really kind of a whirlwind presentation. I'm going to give up my screen back, but obviously I'm going to be listening in and hearing from our other speakers and leading a discussion following, but I'm always open to any other follow-up questions in that period.
Great, Mark. Thank you very much for those insights. Now let me just take over. So some people may have wondered why we choose the space station and as a theme for the slides and so forth. So A, it's innovative. B, it's fast. So with 4.76 miles per second, we wish our ocean transportation would get anywhere close to that, and we wouldn't have any supply chain issues at all, because we could just move the containers lightning fast, and that would be great. And of course, it's international, just like global logistics. So with that said, I wanted to just basically summarize what you have to kind of do, and you probably live it every day, trying to figure out how to route your cargo manually if you don't have a system. So a lot of people back in the days and still today use static routing guides, and you have, if it's coming from A and needs to go to B, put it on this carrier and use these dray people or whatever, or many people just use carrier haulage to not have the headache. So if you needed to, then you need to check drayage rates, you need to check intermodal rates, you need to check all the options for schedules, for availability, for spot rate markets and prices, and of course for every single load, if you have many containers, that gets extremely cumbersome, pricey, and the ratio of success, of course, diminishes over time as the complexity increases. We've seen Maersk has now API-based spot rates. A lot of people can check it via the website, and then you at least can take advantage of some of those rates. CMA and Hapag have come out with similar offerings, and so we foresee that happening. And in order to kind of show how this could work in a dynamic, interactive cloud environment, let me just jump over here to our FreightGate Logistics Cloud. And if you were to now basically do that same thing in a system like ours, you could just basically go, I have a shipment from Basel, and you can use the code, or you can type it in and you have the whole autocomplete. You can select the type. Do I want a door move, a port move, a ramp move? And you wanted to, for example, ship that to Cleveland. And you can go and do your search. And now the system builds all those dynamic routing possibilities based on merchant haulage, based on spot rates, based on the various different things that you have in your contract. And if you then go look, this, for example, would be a move from Basel ramp via Hamburg. So it could be a barge move or a truck move up the River Rhine and so forth into Hamburg, and then going into New York down to Cleveland. For the geographically challenged, we even show you a little map to make it a little easier to visualize it for the people that didn't pay attention in school. You can get the breakdown for all those prices by the system, and as you can see, I mean, trying to just look up different haulage rates, combining those with different ocean rates, gives you, of course, a much faster insight into how you could move your cargo if you have a system that does that for you. It aggregates the transit times. It can even model carbon emission, which now, with the new administration, rejoining Paris and so forth, is probably becoming more of a topic again in the leading days going up to that. If you wanted to, for example, see a dynamic search from Hong Kong, from LA to Hong Kong, let's just do US LAX to Hong Kong. And you can see we have all these crazy things. So let's just do port to port here. And we activated rate requests. You could also look at spot rates and quotes and things like that. And you can go do your search. And now the system behind the scenes, because we selected rate request, is also calling the Maersk API, for example, and gets you those spot rates as part of your search without you doing any extra work. Maersk once in a while is a little slower, so you have to sacrifice a couple of seconds, but compared to doing it manually, still awesomely fast, right? So you can see, like, for the various different vessels and voyages, you have like different prices and different results. You can even drill in and get all the details that Maersk is willing to give you. And if you wanted to, you can directly book one of those vessels via their website as well. So makes it all nice and tight if you have the appropriate user ID and password. So you have different prices for different voyages, and you can basically get your contract rates mashed up with any kind of API data source from third parties at the same time, giving you much more agile insights into the solution. Now, if you were to automate this further, we can tap into all your pending bookings. You can verify your availability, and then you can go find your rates for those bookings as well by just a click of the button. And that would be your rate for this one. China. And the beauty is on this particular view, we mashed up sailing schedule data together with your rates and a composite score based on the price and the various different things that seem to be important. Since we have access to all the sailing schedule data, you can also click and drill down into the sailing schedule and basically see those vessels, voyages, and information that is relevant. And you could go and request it, and by that triggering a workflow that would let you then make the bookings via the system instead of having to do it manually. On the Maersk inquiry earlier, you may have noticed we looked for US LAX. If you ever use the Maersk website, you can tell that if you're searching on Maersk for LAX, you won't find anything because they only post them via Long Beach. But the system, again, is trying to make your life much easier by allowing you to use what we call smart ports. So LAX, Long Beach, San Pedro, all will be treated, and the system will do the work for you and look those rates up against all the various different places. So again, it's a very, very easy way harnessing the power of the cloud by mashing up all this information that we have available and can help you to become much more efficient in doing so. One of our customers a while ago, when one of the carriers introduced the reverse loop that went up the coast in China and down the coast in the US, actually found using this technology a new routing by uploading their intermodal rates into the system that was 4 days faster and $1,000 a container cheaper, that basically went discharged in Seattle. And I wouldn't be surprised if some carriers go with the congestion we have in LA and at least introduce vessel strings that would do something similar in the coming months. So that's kind of the glimpse into the system. We're happy to set up demos with much more detailed information if you like. So with that said, one of the reasons we selected to partner with Cargo Chief is having drayage information and trucking long haul rates available to move the cargo either domestically inland from the port to your distribution center, or from one distribution center to another, or to your customers is of course very important. And Russ can speak to all the efforts they have put forth in order to give you unparalleled coverage and basically almost real-time rate information for those tricky domestic moves. So we are really excited to be part of that ecosystem and have the ability to make those rates available via our API calls to Cargo Chief's system as part of the overall solution to the supply chain as we see it morph in the future. And with that, Russ, I will make you presenter, and you can give our valued audience some glimpse into the C4 system. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds great, Martin. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present, and I'm going to go ahead and start sharing a screen too here. Let's see if it behaves. Thinking about it. So while I was thinking about that, I will, maybe it's working. Can you guys, oh, here it is.
You need to click share screen at the bottom.
There we go. Are we sharing now?
There it is.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So, so first, a little bit of background. We were a tech-enabled freight brokerage, one of the very first, and we grew very quickly to tens of millions of dollars of revenue in just a few years. And then other freight brokers started saying, hey, Cargo Chief, we want to license your technology. Your multi-patent award-winning tech is better than anything else I can find. So we stopped and technology to 3PLs to help them be more effective, more efficient in arranging North American trucking. And we're very excited about our partnership with Freightgate and Martin that enable his customers, all your customers, to now access this valuable rating information via the Freightgate platform. So our customers told us a year ago they're really frustrated with the existing providers of pricing solutions. They view the data coming out of RateMate or RateView as, you know, weeks or months old. 30 days is very common. There's a lot of steps here that that are on the chart, and the technology is viewed as being very old. And our customers want current information, and they didn't want to be something that's influenced by teaser rates that are thrown onto a load board. And some of them want RFP support that didn't cost an arm and a leg. And for our customers, brokers in the United States, you know, they might have 2% EBITDA margins. So knowing what cost to pay a carrier is really important, and know what price to price it out to the shipper. If you don't know those things, you literally, you know, that's the difference between success and failure. So we have announced Lane Master. We had beta testing Q3 of last quarter. It became live Q4. And it's the industry's first real-time pricing engine. It's built on modern API technology, like we've done with Martin, and provides real-time pricing that's not delayed. Additionally, uniquely, it provides recent transactions of what's available, what are other people paying right now. And a lot of people feeling pressure to have 24/7 live rates on their system. We see that from Uber and Convoy. This is also a consortium. So members pay to see the data. They share their anonymized data. And then at the end of the month, we give money back to those members in the ratio that they share data. And already dozens of entities are onto the platform, and over $100 billion of transactions are committed. So let's go ahead and hop into a trial here. I understand from the JOC and various outlets that Long Beach is a popular port for a lot of freight forwarders. And let's go to Las Vegas, because that's frequently a sort of thing. So I'm putting in Las Vegas fan, and I could put in a time, a date, or a date range. So I can do March to Monday to Wednesday, and then hit go. And what's happening here is there's 4 bits of information here that you'll see. And the rates are what you'll see inside of FreightGate. Is here are the current rates. Here in the upper right tells you the number of miles. What we see is the rate per mile, really pricey. And then we have and then you also have a range here to give you guidance. And then here are the recent transactions. You can see here some people are paying as much as $5 a mile to get freight from Long Beach or the LA Basin into Las Vegas area. And this gives you a great deal of information. It's like when you're buying tickets for a Dodgers game. Well, if people want to sit in section 103 and they hop onto Craigslist and they see everyone's paying $150, that's kind of the going rate. So now you know what to expect, and that helps a lot of 3PLs. Further, if you were a customer of Martin's and getting this information, you'd be able to use your same credentials to come to the C4 application and get capacity and see who are the carriers that are here. Here's North American Freight. We have on here 152 carriers that are looking for this lane. This one's looking for the exact lane, Los Angeles to Las Vegas, so that's a very good match. They have a bunch of other lanes. So let's go look at their full profile. And you can see here that there are how to reach the representatives, how many drivers they have, and you can see the other lanes that they're looking to run and their frequency to see if this is a carrier that you'd want to engage with. Very useful information. We also have siloed notes that are unique to just your area, to your team. So if you had a team of 5, all 5 of you would be able to share the notes on that carrier instead of having yellow stickies everywhere. So that's the quick demo on Lane Master. So again, we welcome the opportunity. To partner with FreightGate, and hopefully it can help you on your moves. Our focus is on over the road long haul moves. We're starting to get into dray, and there's a fine line between long dray and a short over the road, and that's where we're starting to see some business come in. Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Russ. I hope that was insightful for our audience. And Mark, I think let's do some question and answer and take it from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, considering that, you know, we're in that period where North American importers are negotiating their Trans-Pacific service contracts if they haven't finalized already. I mean, what is your thinking in terms of how they should approach that balance between, you know, contracted volume or, you know, having that spot or that real-time routing capacity?
Well, I foresee that people will have to go with a mixture. I think contract negotiations actually will have to contain a certain clauses for guaranteed lift, so you don't end up in the lurch like people are now. But I would say carrier direct only is probably a thing of the past. You do need to have some strong partners that are in the NVO realm that have access to certain other contracts as well to help you basically balance your overall movement portfolio. And I think people will finally start to procure not only end-to-end moves, but they will have to do splits and add the intermodal aspects to the whole portfolio of solutions that they have at their fingertips in order to get the cargo where they need it to be. So common sense, don't commit your whole volume, try to play the spot market, pair it with intermodal rates you have contracted, and make sure that whatever you have contracted is competitive by using real-time market data like what we make available via our partnership with Russ and so forth. So that's, I think, where the market will lead rather quicker than slower.
Yeah. I mean, recognizing that each importer is different, but I mean, do you have a sense of what that direct to spot ratio was before the pandemic, and kind of now where that's tilting in as you speak with customers of how they're finding that new balance?
Well, I mean, go back a couple of years, and I mean, people try to predict their volume and committed probably 80% plus in their contract negotiation of that. So they had reasonable reliability and predictability of their rates locked in for a year, 2, sometimes 3 years. So that's what we had seen in the years past, in the over $2 billion of transportation spend that was negotiated via our platform. But I think that's no longer a real option, and people will need to tilt to maybe 60-40, 50-50 type ratios, where they move 50% on contracts with some kind of a guaranteed lift clause, especially at the current market rates being so high, and play the spot and NVO card for the rest of the volume to basically mitigate the cost and exposure, since not everything in transportation might be able to be passed on to the end consumer at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for a lot of importers, particularly the smaller ones, they may not really have much of a choice in shifting that ratio, because we know that the carriers are quite reluctant to expand minimum quantity commitments without a significant increase in pay levels. All right, so moving on to our next question. You know, given the need to have that stability in freight costs and that ability, the access leverage or to leverage additional capacity, allows, you know, shippers and forwarders to be able to more easily switch and reroute cargo as they switch different partners.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a view to what you have available from a rate level, and that's the beauty. And I mean, we can send out some of those slides, but we have that composite score, right? So you could potentially say I have an allocation strategy across these carriers, and that actually does a very comprehensive multi-echelon optimization based on capacity, allocation strategy, price, transit time, you name it, and you can very easily tweak that to your specific needs. So you can actually have the system help you find that optimized sweet spot on any given shipment in high velocity. I mean, some of our customers run several 100,000 containers a year through API calls, where they basically just get the optimized information out of our system, and then they can handle it any which way they want in their existing in-house infrastructure. So it's very complementary. If you don't want to go all in from day one, that's absolutely fine. We can be your partner and your built-in smarts.
Now, what if I was a shipper or forwarder and I had my own procurement and or TMS solution that I'm not ready to get rid of? How does your technology, can I still use your technology? And if so, is my ability to use it dampened or hurdled by not having the same TMS system?
No, it's not really hurdled. I mean, of course, if you dump your orders into the system and you have an easy cloud-based point-and-click solution, makes life easier, especially with people going remote and so forth. If your TMS solution is on premises, trying to access it might be more complicated than accessing ours. But we don't really limit you by any stretch of the imagination to have to buy everything from us. We are always taken a lot of pride in being a modular approach with open APIs. So you can make a call that says, give me the best rate based on my contract rates, based on the spot rates, based on the intermodal things that I have procured or have access to via my credentials from API data sources. From the various different carriers, mash that all up with sailing schedules, transit times, and so forth, and give me the 10 best moves. And then you can have your TMS go try to get a booking with the first one. If it fails, you can have it try to do a booking with the second one, and so forth. Or you can have our TMS do that for you if your TMS can't do that. But completely open, easily integratable via modern REST APIs.
Yeah. Now, as I think putting myself in the shoes of a logistics manager, the ability to dynamically route goods as needed sounds great, but we also know that there's procedures internally, and sometimes that's not so easy. I'd be interested to hear whether you're seeing more freight buyers move to this kind of dynamic routing, and when they do, how do they use it, and what type of shippers are there? What are some of the examples of the plays that make sense?
Well, I would say the more freight forward-thinking people are utilizing this type of technology to supplement their overall cargo availability and lift. If you don't do it, then it's of course you're at the mercy of your carrier partners to get it moved. I mean, I recently talked to one of our NVO customers, and they say, "Hey, I could move much more cargo if I had the lift from the carriers, but they're just not taking more. So I'm up the river without a paddle." So you do need choices, and you do need the ability to analyze those choices fast, especially if you reach scale. I mean, if you have 5 containers a month, yeah, you can sit there and you can do all the research and you can check the websites. If you have 100 containers a month, it gets a little bit more tricky. If you have 1,000 containers a month, you just can't do it manually, and you need tools. Otherwise, you're gonna suffer badly.
Yeah. So Clyde, anything you wanted to kind of throw in here?
Yes, there was a question about where we get our data, and I'd like to just show one slide, if I can, Martin, that would show where we're getting our data from. I think it would be of interest here. So let me get that queued up. And all right, you make me the presenter. Thank you. All right, looks like I can do that. I'm going to do that right now. Okay. So you should be able to see this slide. This is on the capacity side, not on the pricing side. But where we get our capacity data from is we get capacity emails from carriers. We're the most comprehensive database of carrier preferences in the world that we're aware of. We know better than anybody else which carriers go between what cities on what days and how often. We do integrations with various transportation management system vendors. We do get data from the FMCSA. We also get load data from our clients. We have a recruiting team that has spent many man years all day long. They recruit carriers, trucking carriers into C4. As a result, we have hundreds of thousands of carriers with millions of trucks. We also get data from payment processors and factorers, giving us millions of records. And we also get data from our clients. So they come in, we aggregate all that data, and then we help our clients identify what lanes they need more coverage on and where they're not buying well on. And then we help them procure the right carriers for those lanes, and helping getting their teams to work as a group on those lanes and to organize their quotes. We can also help you automatically gain availability and price. So this should answer the question that was in the chat. Thank you.
Very good. Kind of going back to our conversation, I'd be interested in what are some of the biggest questions that you're hearing from customers as they look at their routing options?
Well,
is that to Martin, right?
Yeah, it's Martin.
Well, one of the big things people are concerned about is the ever-changing nature of the sailings and the sailing schedules, and how that basically relates to what it will do to their cargo availability and so forth. So We have constant updates to the sailing schedules from various different data sources, the carriers direct. So we basically give you the best sailing schedule intelligence in the market. And we have done some of our own research against like AIS data, comparing it to transit times, and we can even make those type of historical artificial intelligence suggested add-ons to sailing schedule delays part of that composite score, and thereby help you do much more intelligent decisions when it comes to how you want to route your cargo and whom you want to give it to. And one of the other things that I could briefly show is there is often a need where you now have this idea, or there is a new sailing schedule available and you don't have a rate. So the system actually offers you carrier facing rate requests that you could send to your carrier contacts, and you can fill that by preferred or whatever, and then just basically list all of them and check them all. And then you can send it out on a branch level or regional level, country level, global level. The carriers will get an email. So for all the ones that don't have APIs, you can still bring them into the ecosystem. And then the system, as they reply to the email, passes that email and makes those rates also part of the meshed up result that you will have available for consideration. The requested validity helps you sift out things that are no longer valid, and so forth. And with the built-in analytics, you can get basically real-time data in pivot tables on your rates any which way you like. As you just move through, you have the ability to just do multiple origin destination analytics or things like that, and then basically create your own pivots with different views and drill downs as you like it.
So, Martin, we're running up on our.
So we're running out of time. So if there are any other questions, would like to.
Well, while we wait for those, I've got one more for you, Martin.
Okay.
So as we've seen, congestion build on the West Coast, and folks are looking for more routing options, are there any trends or patterns towards certain gateways that you've been seeing? Now, granted, I don't want to give the game away, and I realize that every shipper's got their own their own narrow priorities, but are you seeing more to say Vancouver and Rupert, New York, New Jersey? I mean, we've been hearing a lot of shippers trying to hit the Texas market, say via Gulf ports rather than LA Long Beach.
Houston definitely is something people are considering, and that's one of the reasons why we had even in the non-Asia route the Houston example for the Basel Cleveland, because it's not totally intuitive and people don't necessarily think about it to ship something from Basel via Fossima into Houston into Cleveland. But that's the power of the engine, and by just having the appropriate intermodal rates available, the system can make that choice transparent to you, and by having a comprehensive score, it basically will tell you if that's a good choice for you or not, and then you can go about it that way. So I think definitely the more you know, and I mean that's really all we're trying to do, is we're trying to empower our users to have just much more information easily available and bring the decision making to a closer look where it needs to be. So with that, before we run completely out of time, since people do have to probably go somewhere else and attend some other webinars or go ship stuff, I want to make sure that we extend our special offer for those that stuck around. So we will offer a free initial assessment, a free upgrade to access the sailing schedule without any extra fees, and we get you 50% discount on the initial rate load of the data. and 50% discount if you want to take advantage of the allocation management module. Please reach out to me or sales@freightgate.com, reference this offer and that you attended the webinar, and we're going to make sure that we cover you on that aspect. Would love to have some more dialogue and hear your specific problems so we can help you get better at it. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Russ. mhubert@freightgate.com or sales@freightgate.com is where you can best reach us. Russ had his email on there as well, and we're going to send out a follow-up email to all of you once we have this recording uploaded to the cloud. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, everybody. rjones@cargochief.com.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody. Happy shipping.